Welcome to the Deep Six podcast, where we make a generational impact on you and yours. What we do here is explore a 6-point model into your health, your life, and your journey while you're here. So let's dive deep and help you thrive, not just survive. Well, welcome again to the Deep Six podcast. I'm Dr. Lewerenz, creator and medical director of the Longevity Health Institute here in Southeastern Michigan, and I have another wonderful guest. Actually, I'm very, very blessed and grateful that he joined me, because all the way from Dallas, Texas, yet he just shared with me, he just got back not long ago from Thailand in 72 hours, which that's just got to beat the hell out of you, just to lecture in that. But James LaValle, who's a very, very prominent expert in integrative and precision medicine. And Jim, hey, welcome. And I'll give you a better, proper induction, but thank you for joining us.
Oh man, it's always great to be on, man. I love it. I'm excited you asked me to come on.
Well, it's not going to be as exciting as that 72-hour turnaround from Thailand.
I don't know. I can think of a lot of things that would be more fun than that.
Yeah, true. White Lotus, though, that is a famous thing my wife maybe watched. That's on, I don't even know what, Netflix or something, but that's where that was filmed. And so I won't mention this to her because she'll make me take her there if she knows that somebody I know went there.
Great place to visit. The little bit I got the day off, I had one day to see. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's great, man. Well, that's though how sought you are, though, and I say that wholeheartedly. Is you travel the world. You're a global international speaker. You're a clinical pharmacist, author, expert. 30 years of experience in precision medicine, and tell us more. But I mean, I know that's the gist of the outline of your background. But what are you doing lately? And tell us what's happening.
Sure. I mean, obviously still working really actively with the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine and help direct a lot of the education that's there, through co-chairing and being a key opinion leader with them. And so that's always keeping me busy, right? Keeping docs on top of what the latest. So that's always exciting. And, in the last year and a half, I took on the chief science officer position for Lifetime, and which has been exciting, because we got 2.5 million members, really get to dig in and start to bring longevity and performance health forward there, both by developing clinics within lifetimes, and then also just programs out to their general population. So that's been super exciting. And then obviously working with, my Metabolic co-platform, that's getting utilized. We're doing education every month with U.S. Special Forces on that and working with them, and it's getting applied at Lifetime. So we'll start getting big data sets on looking at, what goes on with labs and symptoms when you're applying peptides and bioidentical hormones and nutrients and changing the way people eat and getting them to exercise, right? Which is easy at Lifetime. That's why they're coming there.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably, those are the biggies. Got two more books coming out this year, 2 rewrites that I've got to finish. But,
I'm there. I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. No, that's so. And you're the chief medical officer, right, for the International Peptide Society, right?
I'm just the chair of it. So I'm the chair for International Peptide Society as well. Yeah. So
we'll get into that a bit, but bring up the special forces thing. This is interesting. So you're got a program, or you're working with them on and following some data related to.
Yeah. So right now, the head of human performance. It has been doing education, been a student of mine for several years. And we started doing education for the dietitians and the docs on kind of a systems biology approach to, maximizing recovery, resiliency, readiness. And because a lot of times, we think, oh, wow, somebody that's at that kind of elite level, they're made out of titanium. Well, they get pushed really hard and things break, just like with the athletes. They get pushed really hard and things break. They may look amazing, but they still got 2 kidneys and 2 adrenal glands and 1 liver and, 1 heart. And, they got a gut lining that can get pretty messed up, right? That old leaky gut,
Yep.
So, so it's been very, every month, I actually just did did a talk on, neurodegenerative disorders and, prevention and resiliency. I did that earlier this week for them. So every month we meet and we have, an education experience. And then, we're guiding them on kind of looking at labs, what type of programs can they run in order to kind of keep their operators at their best possible health. So that's been very rewarding. I'm pretty committed to that. In fact, one of the things that's going on is July 5th, the Arctic Challenge is taking place. So a retired U.S. Special Forces, really high-end guy, Jimmy Graham, who was the NFL, player, probably going to end up in the Hall of Fame, and two U.S. row team members are rowing the Arctic Ocean,
Wow.
1,000 kilometers in 14 days. They're going to try and break the record for obviously they're doing it for a foundation.
Yeah.
And we did all their chemistries and, used a lot of the liposomal tablet technology compounds that I've put together. And it's kind of an area I'm pioneering in solid state liposomes. And so I'm going to be real excited to see how they do,
Yeah.
because
Interesting. Yeah.
we had to get those guys rolling pretty quick,
Yeah.
so it was,
Well, and the delivery
it
system you're
was fun.
bringing up, the liposomal, so like including like peptides and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
interesting. Yeah, yeah. So that's
Yeah.
wow, that's really interesting.
Yep.
And yeah, absolutely, that stuff is those ultra endurance, all that stuff, man. I have extreme appreciation for because myself, I don't even know, maybe gosh, what it was 15 years ago. I mountain bike raced and I did a 100-mile mountain bike race, and you had to finish it within a 12-hour period. And I'll never forget how how I didn't recover. Well, how I didn't recover, Well, granted, I'm a doc and I'm a family man. And I got kids, so I got another life.
Yeah, right.
But my point is, I couldn't recover for like a month. I didn't want. If I look at a bike, I want to throw up.
Well,
So
I'm amazed. I mean, they're 14 days,
yeah,
and you're in the Arctic Ocean. It's not like you can fall out of your rowing boat either. I mean, they got what's
right.
kind of cool is it looks like a spaceship, but just with a kind of a hollow center where you're rolling out of it, right? It's kind of really
Wow.
different when I first saw it, but I think it's going to be amazing. And look, there's going to be live satellite feeds on it. Sports Illustrated's covering it, ESPN's covering it,
Yeah,
and I'm just stoked to see how they do. I think we've got a good plan for them, and we
yeah.
put together kind of what they need to do diet wise because they got to do that in 1.5 hour shifts. Like every hour and a half, they'll switch. Like
Wow.
team one, team two, team one, team two.
For
And it's not
14
like
days.
they go back to the hotel room, they got this
Right.
little pod. And you got these two guys that are like, monsters. Jimmy Graham's no small guy, and neither's Andy Trope, who's the other, retired special forces guy. They're going to be pretty cramped trying to get that rest.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. That's wild. Well, how cool. So let me ask you a couple things just early on in your career, and to share with the audience. So I'm grateful to you big time. You don't even know this, and truthfully, we don't even know each other that well. And so again, thank you for joining and me here on the podcast here But what you don't know is in my training and how I got into from ER, family practice medicine, board certified in that. And I was doing a lot with some athletes and a chronic boxing team. Anyway, and I was personally an athlete, but I went through a lot of dysfunction in my late 30s and, burnout, and get into the weeds of this doesn't really matter. But listening to you, and I want to say this to you, and this is, kudos to you and thank you and God bless you and your family and everything. Because I got to tell you, when I was at my very first, I think you were my second lecture. And I want to say
Long
15
time
years.
ago.
Yeah, a long time
Yeah.
ago. But anyway, it was in Vegas, and it was like, 7, 8 a.m. And I was so on fire and so passionate that I had hope that I could help myself and help get out of some things that are really now talking to you and talking to my audience is something I do every day, and I have now for a lot of years. Adrenal stuff and nutritional stuff and gut stuff and,
Right.
reversing allergies and asthma and stuff I didn't even understand from a physiologic, standpoint, functional standpoint. But I went upstairs after one of your lectures and my wife was waking up, and I was so on fire, And to this day, she says to me, "You lost your fucking mind." Because I was so passionate about, like, oh my God, you would not believe, how did I not know this in med school? And I'm doing this like archaic medicine. Like, how do I not know this? Anyway, so thank you. But I do want to say, like, because that's the bread and butter of what you do, is you're an educator,
Right.
and through A4M, and other things. But thank you very much. And tell me, because I off the air, you're doing what's going on with A4M right now in education of physicians and just the masses. What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, we're continuing. I mean, we got record levels of people showing up, so that's fantastic. More and more doctors and healthcare providers are waking up to the fact that you need to have a full thought about what's going on with a person's health, right? People want prevention, they want health span, and they're demanding it, right? And I still think it's a consumer-driven market, right? With A4M, we've got a new uh, fellowship that's being launched. We've re-engineered the fellowship, kind of get it a little more contemporary, make sure we're hitting on the latest, hottest topics. So that's exciting. That's launching this year. Obviously have got a consumer event that's starting, a longevity fest that we're starting to work into. So it's very it's dynamic. I mean, I've been with them. I can't even tell you how long I've been with them. I think it's probably 20 plus years, man. I mean, when I think about it, but it's really exciting that we're continuing to just, I think, blossom and grow, continue to bring more of the latest information that's available to people. Like you, I mean, I hit the wall even earlier, and that's what got me into it. So, I was fully going in this direction in 1984. So, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I'm at this, 41 years now.
Yeah.
So it's a little, I look back at it and go, holy cow, 4 decades.
Yeah. Well, hey, you're growing young.
That's it, man.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Just keep
Uh,
going.
exactly. So, listen, I got to bring this up, and it's because I just noticed, you got a whoop on one wrist. I can't tell, is that a Garmin or whatever on the other? Yeah. So let's
Yeah.
talk about these devices, monitoring devices. I have a Garmin on myself, and I've used about everything. I don't even know the Morpheus band, and obviously polars and all this stuff.
Oh,
But
yeah.
but this is great because my audience. What I'm speaking of is obviously these devices that you obviously are getting feedback, whether it's sleep or whether it's your heart rate variability, or your resting heart rate, or your zones
Yeah.
of training. But what do you think is important about using them, and what do you think is what's some of the newest stuff that you really find really helpful with your patients and with
Yeah.
yourself? Because I know you did
Sure.
something today. I know you trained and did something today. I know you.
I get after. If you saw my gym and on the other side of this wall, you'd probably think I've got a problem. So yeah, got 20 pieces of old Nautilus equipment and a rack,
Love it.
and you name it,
Perfect.
man. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, I'm all over it. So yeah, I mean, I think wearable devices are important. I think they're. I don't know of one that does everything great. A good example is, this is an Apple Watch. I'm looking at my heart rate variability on it. I'm going, holy crap, a 31 HRV? You gotta be kidding me. There's no way I got a 31 HRV. My resting heart rate's at like 49. I train good. I recover. So then I went to, I'm going to do an ultra human ring. So, I did an ultra human ring. An ultra human ring, a little bit better on the HRV. And sleep was good, right? I felt like I was getting accurate on sleep, and then I discovered, probably a wearable strap for HRV is probably the best way to really get an accurate HRV, and then now I'm experimenting with Whoop 5.0. This one just
Yeah.
came out and I'm playing with it. And I think what the value of it is, it's obvious, right? It's like it's giving you some insights. What you can't do is, I think, get paranoid with it. Like, depending on,
Amen. Amen.
it's like, don't start thinking about, oh my God, that reading's off. What do I need to do?
Yeah.
I think it's all still ends up being about what you're doing as your lifestyle in general. And yeah, you want to take some readings. I personally like resting heart rate and 2 minute heart rate recovery. And obviously HRV is so important. And it's
Tell us.
weird though, because I'll talk to people on sleep and, you know, they'll be like, yeah, I had a crappy night's sleep, but the device told me I had a great night's sleep. Right. So I'm still wondering on, hey, where are we with accuracy? Right.
Gotcha. Yeah. Share with us, if you don't mind, about the 2 minute recovery, because I share that with my patients and the data. And I actually learned that from you. I love that. Looked at the science of it too. And, but share that with us and how important that is and so simple to do for really anybody.
Yeah, yeah. Basically, what you're doing is at the end of exercise, you stop, you sit down, and you look at how much your heart rate is recovering in a 2 minute period. Ideally, you would be at a 24 beat drop in 2 minutes. If you're not at a 24 beat drop in 2 minutes, that means that your nervous system is stuck in sympathetic tone. So you've kind of lost your synchronicity of your vagus nerve and what the vagus nerve is telling the heart to do. And I got to tell you, a lot of people don't appreciate the simple things of 2 minute heart rate recovery, like even resting heart rate. You know, resting heart rate for every 4 beats above 62 confers an increased risk of a future, myocardial infarction or at least cardiovascular event of some sort, right?
Hmm.
So when you
Hmm.
start to combine resting heart rate with 2 minute heart rate recovery, you start getting a pretty accurate view of, well, where's my nervous system at? Because I still believe that that's where nobody is really appreciating the importance of the autonomic nervous system, the nervous system that's just telling your body what to do from
Right.
morning to night,
Right.
you
Right.
know?
And I think because just you have 2025 and obviously even before this, we're go, 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 more info. If I can do this, I can do this. And get data, 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 anxiety from data, more data. And so how do you find and how do you coach people to like then bring that down? Because I totally agree. I mean, we're all running on way too much sympathetic tone. And, how do you convince somebody or what tactics do you use with them?
Yeah, that's a great question. The first thing is I show them their labs, like where are you at? What in your lab results show that you're running too hot? So whether that's cortisol or insulin or bad actor lipids or blood pressure, any number of things could show you, hey, you know what? You're running too hot. Let me explain how that works. The biggest problem is you get people addicted to exercise is the way they blow off all the other stressors in their life, and then they end up overtraining. I used to do that. I'm a recovering exercise addict. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And and I still love to kind of get to the edge, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I've learned that first of all, the harder you train, the more you need to recover. So if I'm talking to somebody who's pushing hard, it's the first thing is, well, what's your plan for recovery? How are you sleeping? How are you eating? What are you doing from that standpoint? And then when it's really simple, because what we end up doing is telling people, oh, maybe you should meditate or take a yoga class or, let's throw another 30 minutes to an hour into your already overpacked day, right? Which usually goes right over their head. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so I just do simple things like, you know what? I want you to do box breathing for 3 minutes at lunchtime. 3 minutes, just 3 minutes. Think of all the stress on that exhale that you collected during the morning from your busy job and breathe that out, right? So 4 seconds in, hold 4 seconds, 4 seconds out, breathe out the stress, hold just 3 minutes, and then seal it with gratitude, right? You always want to seal with gratitude. And then I want you to do it again at the end of the day. And then I want to do it before you go to bed at night. Because the one thing people don't realize is when you're in sympathetic dominance, your diaphragm's going to get shallow. You're going to breathe shallow. You're going to build more lactic acid. You're not going to oxygenate your tissues, so you're not going to think as clearly. So I
Yeah.
find that to be pretty effective because once people get on to doing it, they'll say things to me like, you know what? I was in traffic, and that usually really ticked me off. I decided to just do that breathing, and I couldn't believe the way it made me feel, you
Yeah.
know. And so I try to do it that way because, you know, high performers, if all you do is come at them and say you need to take your foot off the gas, unless they just had a heart attack or
Yeah.
something really
Like
bad
scare.
happened, like a bout of
Exactly.
ulcerative colitis, they don't.
Right.
Yeah, they're like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
So I try to really encourage simple things that help them understand how to regain balance in their
Yeah.
nervous system as a way to perform better.
Yeah, I love that. And actually, Saharis, when Dan shared that with me on the podcast, the exact, box breathing, the 4-4-4, and how she makes herself do that in traffic and or at a red light, because then she's just guaranteed, because she's always said she's always driving around and going here, going there, and how it really, really helps her wonderfully. And I notice in my practice, and I don't know what your trend is. Mine's just obviously a small sample size here in Michigan, but I will tell you that it's a lot of my younger females. A lot of them very athletic or ex-college, or just driven,
Right.
athletes that maybe they're the 30s, but they're just used to go and high training and stuff maybe from the past, and they have I don't. It's just new to me, but it's this is the audience that I'm finding that don't understand how to recover. That's just my, and it's interesting because, you try to tell them and give them some tactics, and, most listen eventually, but at first it's like, no, I don't want to get fat, or I don't want to lose muscle. No, I can't back it off.
Right. And when you get them to listen, they don't, not only do they not get fat, they gain muscle and lean out,
Right.
right?
Right.
Because, overtraining, you get all that, extra cortisol. And then, you find those endurance athletes when they come in and they get their, blood taken, and, oh, wait a second, your glucose is at 93 in the morning and your insulin's at 9, and, or 10. And,
Yeah.
they're kind of in that mode of not being able to really
Did
maximize
you see my
their
blood
lean mass
in
potential.
in year 2000? I think you saw my blood in 2000 when I was racing bikes. Because I
Yeah,
was like,
exactly.
how am I insulin resistant and pre-diabetic? I go, this is insane. I'm
Yeah,
riding, I'm lean
exactly.
as shit. What the hell? How does this make? Yeah, but that was
Exactly.
actually me. Totally
Well,
different now. I'll tell you.
yeah. Well, where it really hit me was, so we worked with Corvette race team, right? And we did telemetry on them. So we were measuring core body temperatures. They were racing around a track, and as their core body temperature went up, the reflex time got off. So they weren't as efficient, right? So you start to understand that, when you're not recovered well, or you don't keep your nervous system in balance, you actually start to lose reaction time, and the brain muscle connection, neuromuscular connection is telling you what to do. So if you're a hockey player, you think you're getting your stick to the puck, but you don't quite make the shot you used to always make. And when we worked with Corvette, it was really cool because that's when I first developed synapsin as a nasal spray for that purpose. Was do it before they got in the car, and all of a sudden their core body temperature stayed the same because it works on brain coherence, is what that particular compound was. So they do a nasal spray before they got in the car, and lo and behold, they won Le Mans that year when they
Wow.
hadn't won it in a long time. And
Yeah.
that's when I really started to appreciate it, by like seeing at a very high level, what happens when you really harness the power of your nervous system.
Yeah. I love that. It reminds me of, my brother-in-law is a retired NHL hockey player and loves the cold plunge. And I mean, I kind of got into myself. But when he was playing, he just retired recently. When he was playing, he said the cold plunge to him wasn't just the anti-inflammatory and the recovery. It was a mental thing that he felt like he said this. He's not, nothing with medicine. He doesn't understand any of this. And
Right.
he's like, I just felt like I mentally calmed down a lot, and I was way more mentally in tune and reflexively, efficient. And it's interesting you said that because it's exactly how he put it.
No, that's it. Yeah, that's it. And and it's interesting now because they've got this. I'm so interested in cold plunge, and I'm going to bridge into another technology that goes with it, which is interesting.
Oh, tell
So
me,
plunge,
please.
it turns out if you do it right after you work out, you actually inhibit muscle growth.
Correct.
So
Yeah, that's what I've.
you never want to you never want to cold plunge right after you do a workout, unless you are using blood flow restriction, right? So
Oh,
I recently came upon this group called Hydra, where they've actually got a shirt and shorts that have the blood flow restriction built right into the shirt, and
oh,
they're all dialed in for the exact pressures. I mean, they're working with NASA. I mean, this is like crazy. But here it turns out when you do blood flow restriction, when you do that, you don't reduce your muscle growth anymore.
muscle gain.
So
Yeah,
that blood flow restriction kind of countermeasures it, which is I always think is cool when we start layering these technologies that
for
actually
sure.
have some
Yeah.
kind of data behind it.
And I find it so hard. This is more my personal kind of routine, is because I have just like you behind that wall you're talking about. I got sauna weights, Peloton. I got the whole thing, and I have a hard time, trying to figure out like, okay, I just did here in Michigan, obviously when the weather's good, I'm riding outside and stuff, but I always keep this muscle balance, lifting and still play hockey and stuff.
Sure.
But my point though, to share this to the audience, in that was just, I'm like, I'll do a hard Peloton, and I'm like, oh gosh, cold plunge right now, which I'm crazy. I'll do 45 degrees for like 6 minutes, which I know is a little, I lose a private part for about 2 hours,
You
scares the
talk a
shit
little
out.
higher.
Yeah, it talks. Yeah, yeah. My wife gets really scared about that. She's like, I think you need, honey, tone it down just a bit, raise that temp a bit. Anyway, but no, but I kind of like, I like it, but I'm like, I don't know. I struggle with this muscle growth thing. I never do it after lifting though. I always skip it then.
Yeah.
What do you think
Yeah,
about
exactly.
cardio though? What do you think about like if you're biking or you're running or that kind of, what are your thoughts?
Well, no, I think it's probably that's a different conundrum, right? Because like with cardio, especially for extended periods of time, you end up inducing more kind of inflammatory chemistry. So getting in that cold plunge is probably going to settle that down a lot better, right? So probably a little
Yeah.
bit different application there.
Gotcha. Well, just with time in mind here, because this is really big and obviously huge. Well, not that new to us, but big clickbait and social media and that, and these GLP-1s and
Right.
peptides in general. And I got certified several
Right.
years ago, but I definitely want to touch upon this just because what's new in peptides. And secondly, I got to bring up because it's something even very, very common. It's, already been studied and shown that these GLP-1s, which I'm a fan of and I love, but we do it the right way with coaching. And I know you yourself, but how, maintaining muscle. And I actually believe we're potentially on the verge of an epidemic of sarcopenia with these people that have been on them so long without good coaching and muscle maintenance.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, if all you're doing is taking a GLP-1, you'd be a slave to the GLP-1 forever. And the problem you get into is just using GLP-1s. And this is the published literature from the research. You lose 30 or 40% lean mass out of the total weight that you lose. And so the real goal on GLP-1s, at least for what we developed in our program with what we're doing at Lifetime and the Meora clinics and what I've done and even teaching the GLP-1 certification course at A4M is titrate dose to the minimum effective dose needed in order to lose a couple pounds a week. When you use that maximum dose of a GLP-1, just think of what the receptor expects. Once you're trying to get down away from that medication, that receptor is just saying, well, wait a second, I'm not getting a signal. There's no signal because you've created a maximum signal with doing that full dose. I mean, when you look at the research on GLP-1s, if you take inadequate protein and you exercise, you actually should build a little bit of lean mass.
Yeah.
You shouldn't lose lean mass.
Right.
But the
Right.
biggest problem is people don't exercise. when they get them, a lot of folks, not everybody, but a lot of folks don't end up exercising. And although people are 2 times more likely to go back to the gym if they're on a GLP-1 versus not, so that part's good. But they don't get their protein targets because their appetite's down. And you
Right.
got to get
That's
to
a
that
big thing.
1.6 grams per kilogram. You want to get to that number so that you can actually maintain your lean mass. And it's look, we've got an epidemic. We got a couple epidemics going on, right? We got a diabetes epidemic. We got an
Right.
insulin resistance epidemic. We got an obesity epidemic, right? And GLP-1s offer all that promise, but you still have to fix the other aspects of your metabolism, right?
Right.
So
But I know the general populace that's using Wegovy's and Ozempics and all these, they're just handed out and see in 6 months they're diabetics. And so they're not getting that proper coaching or mentoring. But the thing is that I'm thinking, and just from a physiologic medical standpoint is in 10 years, yes, we lowered diabetes and neuroinflammation and probably less cardiovascular and, in the, and even, cognitive, issues and cerebral vascular disease. But are we, like you said, married to the GLP-1 forever? And also what's going to happen with our frailty and our osteoporosis and our falls and our, our even just brain volume, in general.
exactly. No, I think it's a dual-edged sword if what we're doing is handing them out. I mean, look, all you have to think about is, muscle's the currency of longevity, right? It's the currency of how we're going to age gracefully. And if we're losing muscle, and then you have people that, they got on them, they got off them, they lost their weight, but then they gain their weight back, and now they want to go back on them. It gets into that HCG diet conundrum, right? From years ago, right? When people were
Yep.
using HCG as their diet, which my fourth year med students at University of Cincinnati, I had them doing, we did a white paper, research with HCG. Did it work? Yes. But what ended up happening is people started thinking like, oh, I need to lose weight for summer and then I can be irresponsible, and then maybe I can go back on again. And I think that's a really slippery slope, man. You're just
Yeah.
going to
Yeah.
keep losing lean mass, and that's problematic. And the other thing is we're not really sure long term is all of this going to play out for benefit. I happen to think, yeah, without a doubt, if you're less insulin resistant, you're going to have you'll have less neurologic issues like Alzheimer's, cognitive function. There'll be less risk of that because when you're making a lot of lipopolysaccharide, which happens in the gut in people with diabetes and it crosses the blood-brain barrier, using those GLP-1s blocks that kind of chemistry, which is good. But if you still haven't corrected the gut, you're still making all that, right? So it's really
Yeah.
understanding, we don't want to be having like a situation where the dog's chasing its own tail.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I think
And
that's what's
I do
happening.
want to stress, I just for my audience, I'm a GLP-1 fan. I'm not, but I've just done it,
Me too.
doing it right and doing it with coaching and, the proper team and thought process and protein and et cetera. And actually we just started the last 6 months, maybe a year, incorporating with those patients, obviously, if they're willing to do this, is taking the probiotic, the Akkermansia muciniphila, because of that kind of why they're on it, innately building the GLP-1 so that when we do taper them down and taper them off, truthfully, I can't say that I've seen a lot of big changes yet. Yet I think at
Yeah.
least I'm making an effort to, like you said, we're trying to support them that this is a temporary,
Right.
you're not going to be committed to this GLP-1 forever to, maintain weight loss and insulin, sensitivity.
Yeah, no, I think for me, Acromantia, it's very interesting. It's the only thing I'd say is people that have high Acromantia probably don't want to take Acromantia, um,
Gotcha.
to drive it higher. But some of the things that we're doing is like using sermorelin at the same time, which is a peptide that's growth hormone secretagogue as long as they don't have a cancer history. We use a small molecule called OSO1. OSO1's really an interesting compound because it upregulates AMP kinase and regulates mTOR. So you get lean mass production and loss of fat And it has a little bit of GLP-1 activity. So it's small molecule. It's not a peptide. It's considered a small molecule. And so we'll try to, do those things and then really fix those other problems. I mean,
Yeah.
and I'm with you. I think sometimes people may need a maintenance dose in order to maintain their weight, because in the end we know keeping their weight down super important, as long as we can
Yeah.
keep their lean mass up. So
Yeah.
if it's a small dose that they need, it's a small dose that they need. I haven't, everybody's jumping on, hey, here's this plant that does GLP-1. I haven't seen any compounds out there that really mimic what these peptides are doing.
No,
I
no,
mean,
no, no.
it's
I don't think it's gonna be that powerful.
right, right,
It probably just helps me sleep at night a little better, and them, you know.
exactly,
But
exactly.
what other, there's so many peptides out there. I love in our practice, especially because probably my average age of my patients in their 50s, or late 40s and up, and they're pretty active. So I love the BPC 157 and TB 500. I mean, I really love all of them, but my point is those seem to be so powerful as an anti-inflammatory. And I'm sure you're a fan, but what else you got up your sleeve, or what else, or what do you think about those?
Well, I mean, first of all, when you age, you're losing your thymus gland activity, right? So using the thymic peptides, there's a few new ones that are going to be coming out that are interesting. TA11 is interesting. There's a new thymus beta 4 fragment that's actually got some cool papers on it that's coming out that I think is interesting. All along that line of, as we're aging, we want to keep our thymus gland active because we fight things off and we keep our immune system in balance, right? Which
Right.
is great. And BPC, I mean, why don't we just put it in the water? I mean, I actually just think it's,
Yeah.
I mean, we're willing to
Well,
put
better than
statins in
over
the
the
water.
counter, right? Better than everyone thinking Motrin and Advil is safe and okay for everybody to take every day.
Yeah.
Why not?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah. It's only
So yeah,
162,000 bleeds a year that are
right,
responsible
right,
due to
exactly.
that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
But no, I really think BPC is important because we as we age, we're running against chronic low grade metabolic inflammation, right? Called metaflammation. And that metaflammation attacks things like our mucus barrier in our gut and our connective tissue and friability of our collagen and ligaments, right? And I think BPC is kind of like a great compound that kind of neutralizes a lot of that rage of aging. So I
yeah.
think that's fantastic. I love there's a lot of interesting research that we're playing with right now, but I love the growth hormone secretagogues, because the first thing that happens when people get under a lot of stress is they shut down their growth hormone releasing hormone. And when you do that, you lose your circadian timing. So that master slave clock that's dictating how all your cells and organs are doing things gets off. And that kind of starts to contribute to that meta-inflammatory chemistry. So especially the older people get, you use things like sermorelin, ipamorelin, CJC was real important. They took tesamorelin out and said it was a biologic, so that that one can't be used as much now. But I think resetting that circadian pattern is so important.
Hmm.
Love things like the epithalamin, so the bioregulator epithalamin or epitalin, it really helps with that. Clock setting is also cool. So I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of interesting deliveries of peptides that are going to happen in the next year.
Well, you mentioned about
Um,
the liposomal that you're even personally working on, which I love because not actually from, I mean, I don't mind a sub Q, or most of my patients don't mind some sub Q injections, but obviously for travel and for ease,
yeah.
a oral liposomal, if it's even 80% of, efficacious, I mean, that's a home run.
Yeah, I think some people get injection fatigue, and
Right.
traveling with them is hard.
Yeah.
And
I like that
we've
term, by
got
the way. Injection
yeah.
fatigue. Hey, doc,
Yeah.
you got me
Yeah,
poking myself 5 times, 10 times a week.
yeah,
Injection fatigue.
exactly.
I'm going to
It's
use
just
that. I haven't heard that.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's a real thing. When you say that, people go, "Yeah, that's exactly it." Um, yeah, so I mean, it's interesting. We've started playing with this multi-layer liposomal tablet wrap. One of the problems with liquid liposomes is that they agglomerate, they stick back together, and you don't get the benefit after like 60, 70 days after manufacturing. They start getting to be big again, and now you can't absorb it. But this solid state liposome was developed by this pharmaceutical scientist for to deliver opioids and cancer medication. So you could do
Hmm.
less of a dose, not get to a toxicity risk, but yet get the same effect, right? So they have these patent pending on all this technology, and it's really good for small molecules. And what I really liked is they could prove that even after 2 years, they did like what's called electron microscopy and fluoroscopy. They could light up the little molecules and show that they were still in their 100 nanometer space, and they weren't sticking together, right? So they could show that you still have a small particle size, and the fact that liposomes will get directly into the lymph and the micelles and don't go through first pass effect. And now you can get it across the various barriers in your body. So I think obviously
Yeah.
I've spent a lot of time on it, and
Yeah.
I think it's a really cool innovation that's taken place. And we've got there's a few compounding pharmacies that are playing with them, and they're finding they're getting really rewarding results.
Yeah.
So we know, like
That'll be
Dr.
great.
Heyman on using vasoactive intestinal peptide. He just published a paper showing kind of a change in the epigenetics of people that are chronically exposed to mold. They get their immune system all jacked up, and the resolution of that by using that oral VIP. So we know that it's working for that peptide. It's working for a few others. I think it's going to be interesting.
No, that's great. That's wonderful. So share with us. I got to switch gears here a bit. Talk to you. I got to talk to you for hours, man. This is so interesting, and I know our audience will love this and learn a lot. Um, I practice this 6-point model essentially, just to dumb it down for my patients to understand. It's a functional kind of precision model, but
Yeah.
we look at genetics and hormones and gut health, which include nutrients, toxins, detoxification, structural
Right.
issues, and mind body connection. I call it the deep six, basically.
That's
And
cool. I
yeah,
like
yeah,
it.
but it's very similar to and very share with us the metabolic code and the triads
Sure.
because they're very very aligned, very similar, and what you're doing with that.
Yeah, so I mean, after seeing a lot of people, I mean, I like to consider myself like a bricklayer, man. I mean, I'm not the smartest guy on the street, but I saw enough
We'll edit that
patients.
out. We'll edit that out. Don't worry.
No, it's okay. I take no pride, man. But I saw enough people that I started seeing clusters of patterns and why people's chemistries were breaking down. And I first started lecturing on the metabolic code in 1997, and then wrote the first book in 2002. Second edition's coming out, and what it does is it tries to create networks that you can easily explain to a person. So adrenal, thyroid, pancreas is about cortisol, insulin, and thyroid hormone, and it's kind of getting people to understand when that relationship is off, you start to gain fat and you lose energy, right? And then gut, immune, brain is the next triad. That's basically, yeah, you got a nervous system that connects the gut to the brain, and if you're under a lot of stress, your gut hears it and it gets permeable, and the immune system is the interface of that. And then and then it's also connecting those networks, right? It's understanding that when you're under stress enough and you're pumping out enough cortisol, it it starts to stack onto that gut immune brain relationship. And so what we did was we created a 40,000 decision algorithm that we codified, and so you answer a questionnaire, your biometrics go in, your labs go in, and it all starts to feed into these five triads. So adrenal, thyroid, pancreas, gut, immune, brain, cardiopulmonary, neurovascular, so that whole thing about the autonomic nervous system, where your lipids are at, what's the particle sizes on them, all those goodies. And then liver lymph is detox and anemias and that kind of stuff. And the fifth is hormones.
Yeah.
So it's very similar. And I really built it as a way to score how much metaflammation is going on in your body so that you can score that. And then the next time they do the test, the scores are either getting better or they're not. So if they're not getting better, I missed something or they're
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
following their program,
Yeah.
one or the other.
Yeah.
And so
I like that. I like
that's
that,
what
which
we're,
people need.
yeah,
People need that kind of, that kind of
yeah.
data, that kind of concrete objectivity about it. That's simple. I mean, they can see.
Yeah, yeah. Really quickly, here's your metaflammation index for adrenal, thyroid, pancreas, and gee, if you're really high, that's not good. If the more you bring it down, the better it is, and that's what we're deploying at Lifetime, and my whole goal. And it is a long road to getting that thing built. I mean, I'll tell you what. I mean, I'm either have great perseverance or I'm very stupid. It's one or the other. But what's really great about it is, we're going to be able to collect on populations of people and say, if you're eating this way and exercising this way, and here's how much caffeine you're taking in, here's the nutrients you're taking, here's your bioidentical hormones and your peptides. Are you following the plan? And then what's your results, right? Now we can start to, really, because, we've been so passionate about this for a long time, right? Personally, we're passionate.
Yeah.
But where we lack is we don't lack enough evidence on this multivariate model that we run. We just don't have
Right.
enough
Right.
of that. And I
And I
think
think most
that's what my goal
practitioners,
is.
and I think that's so key you said that, because when I get asked, mostly a new patient or somebody fairly new will say, why didn't I know this before? Or why did my practitioner tell me this before? Or the internist I saw or whatever.
Right.
And I say
Right.
just the truth is this: they're good docs, they're good practitioners, they're good. It's not about that. It's complicated. And there's tons of info that is hard to collect. And then a lot of people, like you said, injection fatigue. I think they have, visit fatigue, and they're just like,
Yeah.
they're not going to do it. And that's just the
Right.
facts. And something like this, is very just a systems approach that I love it. And I love the objectivity to it too. So that's awesome. Very cool.
Oh,
And
I
how does that work,
appreciate
by the
it.
way? How does that work? I mean, for our audience, and we'll share all this by the way, connected to
Sure.
our show. But it's obviously there's a Metabolic code website and all that. But share that with us.
Right. Yeah, so metaboliccode.com. There's practitioners that are using it. Obviously, Lifetime is using it. We've got different pockets of individuals doing it. And what I'm really toying with right now is how do we do more of a basic model for direct to consumer where they get on the journey, but when they run into hey, your lab values are here, you need somebody to work on.
Right.
You need a healthcare provider, because
Right.
what I find is I think people are trying to biohack themselves a little bit too much without getting real professional guidance from a healthcare professional.
Yeah.
Like they need a doctor like you, right?
Yeah.
They need a doctor. And I tell people all the time, I've been working with docs for the last 40 years. I mean, now any clinic I'm involved with has a couple physicians. We got dietitians. We got everything. I look at it as, I'm maybe the Oz behind the curtain. I'm looking at all, how we can tweak and make these things happen. What are the new cool compounds? What are the new cool devices? But in the end, they need to see you've been as a physician, you are trained to pick up when the warning signs are more than what
Yeah. Well, and
self-care
that is what's
can
scary about a
be.
little bit of this biohacking, which I'm not against, right?
Yes.
But I got my own patients that pay me good money and take quality time, that they're very busy people, and they will sit in front of me and bring up this stuff that, is biohacking, clickbait, very little evidence. And I have to go, they love this. I go, so why do you pay me?
Exactly.
Because I'm like, you're kind of
Introduce
going rogue.
yourself.
By the way, they're doing awesome. I always say, is something wrong that I'm not missing? They just start because
Yeah,
it's
right.
social, they're going through their Instagram and they get looped into something and they're being fed something that
Yeah.
they want, we're supposed to be fed. And next thing you know, they're like doing something that's got very little
Yeah.
science on, and definitely not personalized, and then, yeah, if there's a red flag or something that a physician or a mid-level or any practitioner that's got some knowledge needs to like, whoa, hey, we got to do a little bit, more serious digging into this, because there's things, I mean, that, people come in for, even in my practice, they come in for wellness, and all of a sudden it's like, whoa, hey man, you got some significant heart disease, and those don't want to be missed. So I appreciate you saying
exactly it. Yeah, no, it's so important. And, I mean, I have people come in, I classic, and I know you see this, I have this one, he just comes to mind all the time, sends me an Excel spreadsheet, right? He's got a page on peptides, a page on his drugs, a page and a half on his nutrients. He's got a page on his powders. And I look at his labs and I go, and he's like, I'm a biohacker. Really? Okay. You're probably going to teach me a lot. And I'm being nice. I mean, I want to help, but I looked at his labs and I said, well, your blood sugar's at 95, your insulin's at 10. I mean, you're doing 5 pages of things, and you still have one of the biggest risk factors that cause you to age right in your labs. What do it's thought of everybody. Everybody wants the Tibetan goji berries that are picked by a monk and laid out in the moonlight and,
Right.
Dried under a certain temperature.
Right.
And, you still have to maintain. And I love that stuff. I mean, look, I mean, I never met a dietary supplement or a natural compound or a peptide I didn't like, right? I mean, I love it all. I've written about them, written databases on them, but there has to be targeting. There has to be precision. There has to
Right.
be, and you can't do it all at once. People want to jump to, stage 3 or I want to go to the longevity stuff, and they haven't corrected the
Oh yeah.
foundational things.
Oh, for sure. There's no longevity without that. I have to explain that same thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
They get stuck in the, what is it, the fancy car, or, the white wall wheels.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Yeah.
like, I need rapamycin now.
Yeah.
It's like,
Well, let's push the fast food away first and lose, 30 pounds.
yeah,
No,
exactly.
for sure. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, Jim, hey, listen, I really appreciate you, man. This is it's so enlightening and fun. And man, we could talk about so many other things. And I know we're going to have you in sometime, actually, to one of my live events. So we'll coordinate that again. And,
That'll be great.
And absolutely appreciate you and your insight and your help with me and educating me and today our audience in that. And absolutely. And if you the audience out there, go to metaboliccode.com, look up Jim LaValle. I'll be listed here. And obviously, if you enjoyed this podcast and you're learned some things, hopefully got some entertainment out of it, subscribe, follow us, and share this, because believe me, when you share this podcast, and it happens all the time, you impact lives and you really make a difference in people that you love and that are around you. And there's nothing better than that to give a gift to. So Jim, again, thanks a lot. Appreciate you, man. And God bless. Have a good holiday, good 4th, good summer, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah, same, man. Thanks for having me.
Okay. And this is Dr. Lewerenz signing off here from the Deep Six podcast, where we help you thrive, not just survive. And thank you again to our sponsor, the Longevity Health Institute. And we will see you again on our next episode.